Happy Friday. Welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Do you think gentrification's a bad word? You know, the gentrification is used like it's a bad word, but I'm not very convinced when I see the reporting and, there's a lot of it that's always going on around here in DFW because we're booming. People are moving here. 20 years ago, 4 million people lived here, and now almost 8 million people live here. So we've had to make a lot of developments. We've had to build some new apartments and some new houses, and some new investors have had to come in. We've had to rezone some stuff, and we've had to have some public hearings. And so being a boomtown just naturally comes with these discussions on gentrification. And I'm not scared of it. It was a word that sounded scary. And the more I've had to observe these stories and dig down on them and report on them and then follow up on them 10 years later and follow up on them 20 years later, gentrification is not only not a bad word, it's like the best thing that can happen to your neighborhood pretty much. If someone flew over and was just dropping gold coins out of a helicopter, okay, better things could happen. If Scarlett Johansson moved next door, you can make a solid argument there. But for the normal course of action, whatever's going on around here in North Texas, gentrification gets a bad rap, undeservedly so. Now, my object today is kind of split here because I read in the Dallas Morning News that they had some big public hearings this week, and the county commissioners had to go in some briefing about new investment in a West Oak Cliff neighborhood. Now, the Dallas Morning News did a pretty good job writing up with a lot of detail. Good for them. Yes, they sounded incredibly biased. They believe in gentrification and treat it like it's a terrible thing. But other than that, some good info here. But I can't really use newspaper on the radio like I can use a TV report. So I went to go grab a TV report. Like, hey, maybe our partners over at WFAA reported on this public hearing that happened yesterday with the county commissioners in West Oak Cliff. And no, but they had one from the Cedars neighborhood about 6 weeks ago. And if you just swap out the neighborhood name, every one of the details fits. Every one of the complaints fits. And then it's like, I kind of knew this, but it wasn't this obvious to me. It really slapped me upside the forehead when I was digging, because I was thinking, hang on a second. Not only does this apply to both of these situations that are happening, one in South Dallas, just the bottom fringes of downtown, and the other one in West Oak Cliff. This is pretty much something you can copy and paste like a Mad Lib about any gentrification story that you've heard in pretty much your entire life here in North Texas. I don't know if you've been here, but this matches so many of the other stories. It's just a cut and paste. Listen to this. This is from WFAA, which I'm not criticizing them. They didn't do anything wrong here. But I feel like if we can just solve this one and this story, I want you to remember this, and next time gentrification comes up, your revolver's already loaded. So this was, I think it was February 4th of this year, WFAA, on the Cedars gentrification.
Nestled south of the Dallas skyline is the Cedars. This neighborhood has long been a haven for small businesses like Opening Bell.
Morning.
Hi. And creatives from all walks of life. Marion Marshall has lived here since the 80s. She describes the Cedars as a place where old warehouses double as homes and art studios.
The dirty word that's longer than 4, gentrification, rolled up.
Gentrification.
There it is.
When an area of a city experiences an influx of higher class people moving in who renovate and rebuild homes and businesses, which often results in the displacement of earlier, usually poorer residents.
Once the renovation of Southside had started, then people started taking another look.
Now, as new builds go up, Marion says it is worth the fight to ensure the Cedars retains its soul. A 2024 Builders of Hope report found the Cedars is experiencing gentrification, leading to rising property values and demographic shifts. The study recommends using public land for affordable housing, homebuyer assistance programs, and stabilization vouchers.
Yeah, I was real interested in her definition of gentrification. She was kind of right, but not every one of those situations matched her definition. When perceived higher class residents or investors move into a neighborhood, displace some of the old ones. Because you don't hear gentrification used like when they dropped a Buc-ee's in Terrell. It's like, well, there's a bunch of poor people there who are going to get priced out of their area. They're going to build a giant couple of hotels, and then there's going to be like a Hobby Lobby and a Specs and dogs and cats living together. But that wasn't called gentrification. It's not called gentrification when some new people are moving into Fairview and they want to build like a Mormon temple and people are fighting against that. So there's a little bit more than just a class level here. I mean, some people make it a little more obvious that there's a racial component to this, because I can't think of another gentrification story where that wasn't like an interracial swapping of demographics. So is that what the problem is? Is that where they're going with that? Because for the people who love big government and they think there's a government program to solve all your ills, of course they see gentrification. And how do we solve it? Oh, more Section 8 vouchers, more public-private partnerships, more, what do they call it, stabilization funds? More stuff that you're going to have to pay for. More stuff that's going on your tab. This is going to cost you. But let's couple that with another story. When we get back, I'm going to play you the latest update that's going down with the flagship Neiman Marcus downtown. And they're doing sort of the opposite of gentrification. You know, instead of a new investor, instead of a new corporate entity or company moving into an area, we're going to take a big flagship store, a big entity that's been in this neighborhood for decades. And if they want to leave, how is that treated? You'll hear it next, an update on the Neiman flagship. And the larger question I'm asking you right now, gentrification, is that a bad thing in your book? Is there some way that you can improve a neighborhood and not have it criticized? Is there some way investors can come in and pour millions and millions of dollars into a neighborhood without it being called gentrification or something negative? And if you do think gentrification is a bad thing, doesn't that make you opposed to progress? Doesn't that make you opposed to advancing and investing and improving neighborhoods? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Who says gentrification's a bad thing? Do you think that's a bad thing? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Not only do I think it's not a bad thing, I think it's a fantastic thing. I think it's not only a net positive, it's undeniably more good than bad. The biggest argument that actually holds some water, is how it's inconvenient for people who were renting in the area. The prices go up, the rent goes up, and they're forced to move. Okay, but that's the worst, because if you're just renting your property, you don't have a right to rent there or have a complaint about what happens to the land around you. You don't even own the piece of land that you're on, such as the transient nature of renting. If you don't like it, rent somewhere else or go buy a house. Oh, I can't afford to buy a house. Well, I think a lot of you are living in that neighborhood because of the location, because it's close to your job. And so, you're paying for the higher lifestyle of being close to work. You're going to have to do what so many other people did. Move a little further away from work where things get cheaper. You're just going to have a longer commute. You're going to have to sit in traffic longer or pay the higher rent. But if that's the only argument against it, it is far outweighed by the positives. New money pouring in, property values going up. I mean, the people, there were some people who were living on the edge or on poverty or just normal lifestyles who can now sell out for like $800,000 on a house they bought 20 years ago for $200,000. There's a lot of people who score. The rest of us score because higher tax revenues from higher property values in both the retail side and the sales tax and the property tax. It's just a win-win for the city as a whole. So I don't understand why every time I see something on TV about it or read about it in the Dallas Morning News or Fort Worth Star-Telegram or most media outlets, they always act like it's a bad thing. And they always go put the microphone in front of some poor person and is like, this neighborhood's changing and I've been here for 60 years or I've been here since the 80s and it's going to lose its soul. It's going to lose its soul. Neighborhoods don't have a stop it. Soul. This is your argument for restricting development, stopping progress. And so the real confounding part is, well, what happens when it goes the other way? What happens if there's an existing entity that wants to leave a neighborhood? Oh, that's bad too? So here's your update on the flagship Neiman Marcus downtown in Dallas. They were talking about moving. out of there because they couldn't come to a new lease agreement. So now the city wants to step in and with your tax dollars, make sure Neiman's can have its flagship downtown because that's so important they don't leave. Okay, here it is.
Marcus in downtown Dallas will remain open a little bit longer. 30 minutes ago, Saks Global announced operations will continue at the flagship store through the 2025 holiday season. During that time, the company will work with the city of Dallas to explore a reimagined future for that location. City officials met with Saks to discuss creating a new innovative format that will better serve the community and help drive the resurgence of downtown. The flagship was originally set to close March 31st after Saks Global said the company and landowners could not reach an agreement on a lease. We'll keep you updated on any changes to the store's future on air and on WFAA Plus.
Now, WFAA did a good job reporting it. So the sketchy language comes from the city themselves. WFAA was just a messenger, so don't shoot them. We're going to work with them on finding some solutions. That always, in my observation, has involved spending more of your tax money for some connected business. That's what it is every time. Some politician gets a little more power, a little more control over some building or some property or some money. And so I don't know if you noticed the parallel here, but if a big company wants to move into a neighborhood, that's going to cause problems. That's going to be devastating to that neighborhood. We have to spend more of your money to resolve this injustice. And if a company moves out of a neighborhood, this is going to be terrible. This is devastating. And we're going to have to spend more of your money to resolve this injustice. And so these gentrification hearings or whatever is going to happen to the flagship Neiman's, this isn't happening in a vacuum here. By the way, if you have a comment, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This is like step 8 of any of these redevelopment projects. This is when someone wants to revitalize a neighborhood. First, they got to go through the planning phase and then submit for that. And then they have to come up with the initial plan. And then people are going to challenge it. And then they have to have meetings. And this gums up the works so much and so needlessly that it's one of the big things that holds us down. It's one of the big reasons why so much more development happens so much quicker the further out you get from any major downtown. And this isn't a Dallas problem. This is what they do in Fort Worth. This is what they do in Austin. This is what they do in Houston. The big central metropolitan municipality gums up the work with all these hearings. Meanwhile, if you want to go build out in Salina, you're not going to have to deal with all these people calling you some sort of injustice, some sort of gentrification situation. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Oh, good. We have someone who disagrees. Fantastic. Priscilla in Dallas. You're on WBAP. Your thoughts on gentrification?
Well, I feel that the reason people are opposing it so much is that the land value of their homes goes up. Therefore, their property taxes go up. If there was a way the county could freeze their appraised value to when gentrification that really does modify the value comes in, I don't think people would fuss so much about it. People do want nice neighborhoods.
From my point of view, and I really think of the world through the economic lens first, or at least try to. If that is the situation, then number one, your principal issue is not with the gentrification itself, but the property taxes. And so I think you're making a good argument not to stop gentrification or not to stop development, but to get rid of property taxes. Then gentrification doesn't displace these people. Then the other thing that they still have the benefit of becomes even bigger. If you own a house there and the property value doubles or triples and you can't keep up with the taxes, you can sell it, make a tidy profit. You know, if you paid $200,000 for it 20 years ago and you can sell it for $800,000 now, I think you're coming out ahead. I don't think you're getting screwed by gentrification. I think that's the best thing that ever happened to you.
Well, then you're looking at higher property taxes when you can sell it. Let's say you do for $800,000 and you are already retired or something. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're not necessarily going to move up. You kind of plan to have that house, a low property value equaled low taxes when you first budgeted for it and all that. even if you sell it at a profit sometimes, what you have to buy is just as expensive.
Only if you want to live in the same neighborhood. If you go out and look, that's one of the reasons I still have a house in Bug Tussle. Is because it's really cheap. It's unbelievable. There's no way I could get the house for what I paid for it in Bug Tussle anywhere near my office. So you have to make trade-offs. If you want to have that cheaper cost there, then you're going to have a little more traffic. You're going to have a little bit longer of a commute. You're going to have to move. And look, that's unfortunate, but it's not unjust. 800-288-9227. Great call, Priscilla in Dallas. If you want to be next, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Who says gentrification is a bad thing? Well, if you're a taxpayer in Dallas, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If a new investor wants to move into a neighborhood, you've got to be made to pay for the injustices that are visited upon the neighborhood with a new investment. If a big company wants to leave a neighborhood, same answer. It seems like no matter what happens, the answer is you got to spend more. They got to spend more of your money to resolve some perceived injustice. And I'm just fighting back against this whole idea that gentrification is a bad word to begin with. Do you think gentrification is bad? Do you think that's terrible when a poor neighborhood gets an outside investment, cleans itself up, and actually has nice apartments instead of slums? That's a bad thing? How? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is Walter in Frisco. You're on WBAP. What do you think, Walter?
Well, I agree with the lady you had on before the break.
Priscilla.
Priscilla, about the property taxes. And I understand it does increase the value of the property, so in the long run you're going to make out. But it's like getting taxed on unrealized income, if you will.
Well,
right?
again, if you're making that economic argument, then your problem isn't with gentrification, it's with property taxes. And I agree with you. We should eliminate property taxes.
Right. But, if it's the same community that's going ahead and approving the improvements to the area, then they shouldn't be. Then it's the same group that's raising your taxes as well, right? So they are intertwined.
They're raising your taxes. Oh, well, that's just again a bad side effect of having property taxes, not having investments. There are a way for you to have investments into an area without people's property taxes going through the roof. You could either calcify their property taxes. You know what I mean by that? Just freeze them in place. Like once you get a set property tax, it doesn't change, I guess. I mean, I would try and solve for the property taxes instead of trying to block investments into my own neighborhood. I would try and stop that instead of blocking developments and new buildings and new jobs and investments and commerce from coming to my neighborhood. Again, when I hear your complaint, and the part that I disagree with is a problem with the taxation system, not a problem with air quote gentrification.
Right, but you can make one contingent on the other, right? You can say to your city council, hey, we'll go ahead and we like the idea of the improvements, but lock in the property taxes. When I lived in California, they had something called Prop 13, and it froze, kind of grandfathered you in if you had properties at that rate. And then only the people who were coming in with the newer properties were subject to increases in the property taxes.
Yeah, well, unless you do that everywhere, then you have these people who are just petrified in place because they can't sell their house and go get a new one that they could afford because they locked in their property taxes in 1978 when they bought the house off Illinois Avenue in Oak Cliff. And, they bought the house probably with like a $3,500 check, and their taxes are like $6 a month or something. I don't know. If we get rid of property taxes, what's the argument against gentrification then?
Yeah, but how do you get rid of property taxes?
Well, it would start with getting rid of public schools because that's where the bulk of not just the money, but the excuse comes from. And I realize I'm in a small minority on that worldview. But you got to admit, it would be nice, right? If we get rid of property taxes, a lot of these problems would go away.
You must have an L next to your name.
Yeah.
More libertarian than anything.
And it's a lowercase L, and it's all based on economics, pretty much. That's it. And really, I'm not even proud of it. I don't even like being a libertarian. I would like to win an election one time in my life, but I'm what we call a reluctant libertarian in the fact that when I go read through what the founding fathers believed and what economic system they would set up based on the beliefs and what they did when they were in power, I think they would be lowercase L libertarians too. So that's That's why I'm reluctantly have to admit sometimes when it comes to property taxes or public schools, I might just sound a little bit different than hopefully I sound different than the rhinos and the dinos in both parties.
Well, having that locked in property tax is kind of like having locked in low rates on your loan, right? Your interest rates. It's hard to leave, like you said, because if I got an interest rate, I got it 3.25%. The reason I'm not selling is because I don't want to buy else for it 7%.
Well, and you just described me. Good stuff, Walter in Frisco. Because right now, this sounds so sexy, y'all. I got a 2.95% mortgage. You hear that, ladies? That's right. I might drive a 10-year-old car. I might not be the most handsome man on the planet, but you hear that? A 2.95% mortgage. All right, good stuff, Walter in Frisco.
So what you're saying is that a scale of 1 to 10, you're a 3.
Well, what are we talking about? Radio? Because for radio, I get blasted like right up to an 8 or something. But yeah, to the regular world, I'm probably more like a 5 or a 6. All right, thanks for judging me, Walter. Appreciate it, sir. Another round of applause for Walter in Frisco. Hey, we have tickets to see Santana that we're going to give away in about 2 hours. It's coming up at 4:35. If you're already going to be listening, cool. Don't turn the knob. If you have to leave, come back. Or if you can't come back, check it out on the podcast. We're going to be playing Name That Artist. That's a fun one. And we have more info here. WeatherCon is about to happen next month. It's brought to you by our friends over at Blue Ribbon Roofing. So it's Blue Ribbon Roofing's 2025 WeatherCon. We're going to start promoting that hard next week, but I'm just giving you the heads up. April 26th, that's a Saturday. You're going to come out to the Frontiers of Flight Museum sometime between 9:30 and 1:30 and say hi to Brad Barton, say hi to me. I'm going to try and guilt Garrett into going over there on the board. And I think we'll get Casey to go too. We'll more information as it becomes available. Just want to get it in your schedule now. Blue Ribbon Roofing's 2025 WeatherCon is going to be Saturday, April 26th. All right, coming up next on the James Show, we got to talk about, we'll get Brian Harrison. And my next guest is going to talk about some of the other speed bumps that happen when government tries to fix things that it says are necessary. But there's a lot of other problems that come with some of these government programs, and some of it has your data at risk. Some of it has our national security at risk. Charlie Degliomini is back on. I said it better the first time you were on the show. Welcome back, Charlie.
It's a pleasure to be back again. Thank you.
So let's talk about some of the other risks that are coming here, by using the government to do things it's supposed to do, fix our roads and things like that. But talk about the other risk.
It's crazy, and it's important for people to understand. John Wolf just gave an excellent traffic report, right? I can guarantee you that citizens are sitting in traffic because we collect traffic data the same way that traffic data was collected in the 1950s, right? So if you've ever seen a rubber tube that has to be strewn across the road, that's literally counting traffic that has to be reported back to the federal government. More importantly, causing traffic and putting people at risk, you see a guy with a jackhammer, he's embedding a metal detecting sensor in the road. It takes a long time to do, creates traffic, makes everybody late for work, and it is causing frustration, pollution, and wasted time. But it's only because the state and federal and municipal governments have not picked up on new technology. This is no different than the Office of Personnel Management operating a mine in Pennsylvania to keep paper records. It's the technological equivalent.
Yeah, shouldn't they just be tracking our cell phones like any normal person would these days?
It's not. It doesn't even have to be. So today, look, Recor is a roadway intelligence company. We use AI to look down at the roadway and to be able, it operates at the side of the roadway. It doesn't put anybody in danger.
Yeah, it sounds like our traffic cameras that we use for, a lot of people use the traffic cameras. So y'all just have cameras that look at the cars and count them.
Right. Well, it's not just count them. So we can run the code on any of the existing traffic cameras that look down on the roadway and say, okay, we not only get the volume, we know the types of vehicles. We know it's a motorcycle, it's a tractor trailer, it's a Amazon or a FedEx truck. That's the data that's required that municipalities and states need to report to the federal government. But what's not required, and we're hoping the administration, we believe this new administration is going to change all that because they're really leaning in a big way to AI technology.
All right, Charlie Digliomini, when you say that there's national security interests at risk, how does that happen?
Yeah, you're not going to believe this. So traffic data is collected. It is sent overseas, right? So videos are taken and sent overseas. They're not using AI. They're not processing here in America. They're sent to foreign countries. And if you think about the strategic importance, think of Washington, D.C., think of, Austin or Dallas, right? All the important buildings and roadways. Enemies of our country would love to have that data. No one is talking about it, but we are, and we believe the new administration, once again, is going to be leaning into this. That sending U.S. data overseas about our roadways is wrong, and it makes no sense. It's a strategic vulnerability.
Is there anything we can do about it, or just hope Doge fixes it? Just stop it?
Stop it. I mean, it's got to be stopped. This is the crazy stuff that goes on, and people don't know about it until people start looking into it. But this administration is stepping into everything. They're looking at everything, and they're looking for efficiencies. They're looking for ways to implement, to use, to deploy technology to solve problems that's going to improve our lives.
All right. Charlie Digliomini, thank you for the update. Tell them how we can find you online.
It's Rekor, REKOR.ai.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, using AI to count traffic. I wasn't expecting the government to be up on that. I don't know if you've gone to the DMV, but they're still using a speak and spell over there. I think they were watching videos on the VHS tape. It's probably worse than that. They probably have the old Supermax, like the actual film reel to reel that goes. All right, coming up next, hilarious audio from the guy who has the worst job in Austin. Is State Rep Brian Harrison. He's going to be on at 3:15 or about 3:17. Who am I kidding? But I'm going to play you the audio from him today, busting up a House session because they pretended to have a quorum. They didn't, and you got to hear this frustrating process. Our buddy Brian Harrison and his horrible experience and what may be the most worthless House session in the Texas House of Representatives history. Hilarious audio coming up next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.